but I love fairy tales. Not just the classic ones like Cinderella or Snow White, but also lesser-known stories from places like Celtic mythology, Greek mythology, and even fairy tale mashups like Shrek. And speaking of which, did you know there is a fairy tale about a boy who went to get a fallen star and ended up falling in love with said star? That's right! It's called The Star Child. And today we're going to look at a movie version of that story. This movie is called Stardust. How does it compare to the original story? Well, without any further ado, let's get into it. The year is 1779. We open on the quaint little English village of Wall. As we pan across the thatched roofs and cobblestone streets, we see a sign reading, "Beware Wild Huntsman." But everyone seems pretty chill nonetheless. Enter Tristan, a young man in love with the beautiful Victoria, who unfortunately is in love with a pompous rich guy named Humphrey. Now, Tristan works as a stable hand for Humphrey, probably because he's too poor to do anything else. And he really wants to impress Victoria, so he asks her father for permission to marry her. Unfortunately, Humphrey overhears him and uses this as leverage to blackmail, saying that he won't allow the marriage unless Tristan goes and retrieves a fallen star. Why? Because Humphrey believes that the fallen star will bring him great power. So to stop his rival from getting ahead of him, he issues this ridiculous challenge. Tristan feels that he has no choice, so he says yes. But where does one find a fallen star? Well, you may have noticed the ominous dark hole in the wall that's been in several shots. Yeah, that's not just a plot device. That's actually a breach between our world and the magical land of Stormhold, where the laws of physics don't apply and all sorts of dangerous creatures live. This breach often opens in different locations, and this time it's right outside of town. Of course, everyone thinks that Tristan is crazy for even considering going through, but he's in love and desperate, so he grabs a sword and runs right into the magic portal. On the other side of the wall, Tristan finds himself in a bizarre landscape full of floating rocks, colorful mushrooms, and angry flying eyeballs. He hears someone nearby and hides behind some rocks. He peeks around and sees a group of people who look medieval, but they're arguing about who gets to be king. Apparently, their father was the former king and died recently. They all believe that whoever gets the fallen star first will be declared king. But before any of them can get the star, they hear a voice calling out for help. Tristan goes to investigate and finds a young woman pinned under some rocks. He helps her out and introduces himself. She introduces herself as Yvaine and thanks him for saving her life. Then she admits that she is the fallen star. As it turns out, she was sent to Earth by her father, the king of Stormhold, so she could befriend a human and learn about life on Earth. But the journey took longer than expected and she got exhausted, so she decided to nap. And that's when the rocks fell on her. Tristan asks why she is so special, and Yvaine explains that she was chosen by the 7 deadly sins to be their queen. However, for her to rule over them, she needs the ruby heart of the storm, which is currently being kept by her father. But here's the catch. The ruby heart is inside of a giant worm, and for her to retrieve it, she needs a pure heart to help her. Hence the reason she reached out to humans, you know, since they're so pure of heart and stuff. And Tristan, seeing a chance to impress her, offers to help her retrieve the ruby heart. Meanwhile, back in Wall Village, Yvaine's pursuers, a trio of witches, arrive looking for her so they can steal her heart and become young again. Yvaine's simple heart would be easy to steal. But fortunately, Tristan is there to protect her. He blocks Lamia's magic attack and tells Yvaine to run. When she looks back, though, she realizes that the ruby heart stone has come loose and is slowly drifting away. If they lose the ruby heart, the witches will never stop pursuing them. So Tristan and Yvaine team up to retrieve it. Back in Wall Village, Lamia confronts the people, demanding to know where Yvaine is. The villagers have no idea what she's talking about. So Lamia takes matters into her own hands and casts a spell on the mayor's wife, turning her into a bird. The townspeople freak out, but none more so than Tristan's mom, who coincidentally had been turned into a bird by a witch long ago. Seeing his mother in pain, Tristan rushes home, only to find that Lamia has used the last of her magic to turn him into a frog. So now we have two heroes trapped in frog form, and one princess running for her life. What are the odds? Anyway, while running through the woods, Yvaine comes across an inn. She sneaks inside and sees a group of people dressed like pirates playing cards. One of them is a dashing young man wearing women's clothing, which might lead you to think, wait a minute, is that Captain Jack Sparrow? No, it's actually just a character named Captain Shakespeare, played by Mark Strong. Anyway, Yvaine tells him about her predicament and asks for help. And after much convincing, he agrees. As it turns out, Shakespeare and his crew aren't actually pirates. They're sky pirates, meaning they fly ships in the sky. Now, they weren't originally supposed to help Yvaine, but they needed something to boost their low morale. Also, it turns out Mark Strong is fantastic at playing flamboyant characters. Anyway, Schaefer offers Yvaine a spot in his crew. She accepts and together they set off to find Tristan. Now, as they travel, Yvaine teaches Shakespeare how to feel emotions again, which boosts his crew's morale. Soon enough, they find Tristan and turn him back into a human using magic. And the three of them continue their journey together. Meanwhile, back in Wall Village, Humphrey is trying to court Victoria, who obviously isn't having it. She admits that she never loved him and then leaves him hanging upside down next to the wall. Back in Stormhold, Shakespeare's crew and Tristan are hot on Yvaine's trail, but the witches are hot on Yvaine's ass. A fight breaks out, and in the ensuing chaos, the ruby heart falls out of Yvaine's dress and into a nearby river. Shakespeare's crew immediately jump into action and retrieve it. Tristan looks at Yvaine and realizes that he loves her. The feeling is mutual, of course, and the two share a kiss. However, their moment is short-lived as Lamia appears and reveals her true form. She tries to attack, but is defeated by the combined forces of Tristan, Yvaine, Shakespeare, and the rest of his crew. With the battle won, Shakespeare departs with his crew, leaving Yvaine and Tristan together. They return to Wall Village, where Tristan gives the ruby heart to the now human again, Mayor's wife, and she returns the favor by breaking the curse on Tristan's mother. Finally, free of her frog form, Tristan's mother gives him her blessing to marry Yvaine, and the two are wed shortly after. The movie ends with a celebration in full swing, with everyone, including Victoria, celebrating, and that's the story of Stardust. This movie is kinda old, coming out in 2007, but I still think it's a modern classic. I love how the movie doesn't take itself too seriously and instead embraces the silliness of the source material, and the visuals are top-notch. There's a scene early on in the movie where Tristan passes through the wall and finds himself in the magical land of... It's such a fun scene because everything is just so vibrant and energetic. The score also does a fantastic job of making each location feel distinct. For example, there's a piece that plays during the sewer scene that sounds very dark and mysterious. I also love how they brought Shakespeare into this world. He has a bunch of fun little bits throughout the movie. And Mark Strong just chews up the scenery whenever he's on screen. Even the romantic subplot is fairly entertaining. Although maybe a bit predictable, the romance between Tristan and Yvaine is sweet. But honestly, I was hoping they'd end up together. Anyway, the animation style is fantastic, and the voice acting is top-notch. Claire Danes is Yvaine, Charlie Cox is Tristan, Michelle Pfeiffer is Lamia, and Ian McShane is Shakespeare. I mean, just that alone is worth watching the movie. But yeah, overall, this is a great movie. I highly recommend it if you're looking for something fun to watch.